not have sexual relations.
And I realized that this is something he isn't
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm the rocket man.
Doodle-daddle-deedle-doo-dum-dee-dum. Good morning, Franklin.
Well, good morning.
I can't say good morning to John this morning.
I don't know. Oh, here he comes.
Oh, here he comes. Here, play. Turn it up. Turn the music up a little bit. Here he comes. Ended this morning. He's looking for his chair. There's a nice wooden chair. Oh, golly. John's without his notes this morning, ladies and gentlemen. It ought to be a good show.
I prepared and then ran off and left them sitting on the counter.
What is this preparation of which you speak?
Well, the night before, I spend about 2 to 3 hours going through.
2 to 3 hours?
Going through
Holy cow.
National Review, townhall.com, Daily Caller, read articles. Any of them I think would be useful. I print them off. And then this morning, I get up about an hour and a half early, and I go through those notes, and I highlight significant facts that I want to be able to grab hold of quickly.
That's where you use the highlighter, isn't it?
Yep. Wow. My notes are always highlighted and striped.
Mine aren't. John makes fun of my notes. I guess I'll start out this morning with Rawls wants a county review of Backfire.
Of the safety or of the finances or?
Of Backfire? Yeah. Headlines in the banner. There it is. See his picture? He loves to get his picture in the paper. If the banner would quit taking his picture and put it in the paper, he'd quit trying to give him something else to talk about.
I actually don't think Dan's motivated by that at all.
You don't?
No, Dan believes in what he's doing, and he does what he thinks the right thing to do.
Okay.
I don't think he's motivated by publicity at all.
Bet you.
This is my experience, my opinion.
Go to anywhere he shows up and see what they think.
Well, here's the difference, though, Steve. I'm sort of a little bit of the same way. I tend to ask kind of provocative, hard questions and uncomfortable questions sometimes. And if you're a county commissioner and you ask those kind of questions, you're going to get a lot of attention. But the point is, are you doing it for the attention, or are you doing it because you think the question needs to be asked? Dan, I think, asks questions he believes needs to be asked.
Well, the concept of a transparency company from a German company and an American company is drastically different, Commissioner Dan Rawls says.
Well, I can tell you that, just last week we were discussing the fact that the public surrounding the plant up there was concerned that they weren't getting all the information out about what exactly did happen, what escaped, what didn't escape, what dangers are there for them living, side by side with that plant. Did we not talk about that last week?
A little bit, uh-huh.
Well, I guess as a commissioner, that's what he's asking.
Okay. Anyway, I know that they've got a meeting scheduled with the Board of Education, so I guess it's going to be talking about Walker Valley School and Backfire up there.
Well, I have a lot more faith in the director of schools now than I did. 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been worried they would have said we need to tear Walker Valley down and build it somewhere else. I think Dr. Cash is very sensible, and I'm sure it'll be a productive meeting.
Just looking at this article, Dan's wanting, an ad hoc committee put together to do all this stuff. But we have federal investigations going on now. There's all kinds of state investigations going on now, federal. Do you think we ought to just stay out of their way until they finish the investigations, or do you think we ought to have our own local investigation?
No, I probably think you wait until the reports are out.
That's what I would think. So maybe this article's a little ahead of itself.
I mean, I think it's probably legitimate to start a review of our emergency management response and how we handle it. And I'm not saying we did a bad job. That's not what I mean. But that's an opportunity to look and see if the testing and the planning you've done had worked the way you wanted it to, and I think that's appropriate.
I think one of the things I saw wrong with the Backfire deal, I mean, there were several things wrong with it, obviously, but I think our, who's the head of our emergency? Troy Smith. When he was talking, he was acting like he was a representative of Backfire and not of the people. And I just think, Troy's a nice guy. I've met him a couple of times. But I think he really needs to take the side of talking from the community side, not Backfire's side. He was talking about how they had all these.
Well, keep in mind that some people in county government have spent the Backfire money 3, 4, and 5 times over and over and over again. So I'm sure it's considered quite an asset to the coffers of the government. 4 or 5 big plans for that money, over and over and over again.
They still spending money?
Well, it's just, over and over again, we would have another project come up and they go, well, we've got the Backfire money coming in. Yeah, you said that on the last project and the project before that and the project before that. That money got spent 2 or 3 times. So I'm sure there's a feeling that, gosh, this is a jewel we have to protect. And it is a jewel we need to protect. But in that instance, in that moment, the safety and security of the citizens of Bradley County should have been paramount. And I'm sure it was to all the men and women working and to Mr. Spence. But I'm probably not as bothered by his tone, but a lot of people apparently were.
What's going on? I'm going to change the subject. What's going on with Georgia Tech down there? The protests or something? And
welcome to an aggrieved nation. Everybody's a victim. And we have, Franklin and I have argued, and I've always tried to argue from a broader perspective that you can't trample on the rule of law in major settings like the progressive left have done and not have a ripple effect. So the ripple effect is, this is what democracy looks like. This is what mob rule looks like. We don't get our way, we're going to burn something down.
Well, you got St. Louis right behind it. You've got Georgia Tech. You've got St. Louis. What's going on with all these riots and all these? I mean, the guy, the Georgia Tech student, just wouldn't do what the police said. More.
Well, look, it's a tragedy. Don't get me wrong.
Mentally ill.
It's a terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
But the police officers, if you listen to that, they were trying their best. Now, you can, just like Franklin said, we need to review the guidelines for what we did with Backfire. You can review the guidelines of how their policies worked and say, well, what do we do in the future? But you don't go down to the police hall and burn the building down or burn the cars down.
Well, there's a few people evidently think that's what's going on in St. Louis.
Same thing. Didn't like the verdict. We have a justice system. The justice system functioned. They didn't like the verdict. Burning the buildings down.
Well, I can take a friendly protest. That's not a problem. But when you start breaking windows, looting, burning.
Hey, there was
why don't they shut the city down?
There was, the Miami PD put a picture out of 6 or 8 people in jail. And they said, this is what happens when you loot. We will arrest you. We will prosecute you. There were people on social media, some of Franklin's good progressive buddies, that said that was racist and white privilege to be against looters. So apparently looting is now
I was having lunch with them.
Protected status.
My buddies.
Looters are a protected status.
What do you think we ought to do with that problem, Franklin?
Clearly, the writing's wrong. There's no question about that.
Okay.
Who's doing it?
Well, sometimes it's local people in the community. Sometimes it's outside people.
Yeah, but right or left side of the political spectrum. Who's doing the vast majority of the rioting, Franklin?
In those particular situations involving shootings of young black men?
Involving conservative speakers on campus, involving,
and you've seen a tremendous amount of liberal commentary criticizing.
That's
that.
fine, but who's doing it?
So don't
Who's
say
doing
that.
it?
Well, in some cases, it's liberal folks.
Tell me the cases where a bunch of right-wing protesters burned a bunch of stuff down and looted.
There's a moment of silence.
Burned a bunch of stuff down.
Yep.
Well, I don't know of any where they burned anything down.
How about looted?
Well, I don't know the answer to that one.
Well, I mean, the Tea Party went to Washington multiple times, and the streets were cleaner when they left than when they got there.
Okay. What's your
This
point?
is a problem on the political left, Franklin. That's my point, and you know it. The problem is,
Well,
if you
here's
don't
what
call a problem out, you can't fix
Well,
it.
here's what I would say to that, John. And I've already condemned the looting, so let's be clear. I'm not trying to justify that.
You condemning the burning of things down?
Of course I do.
Okay. How about the
But-
shouting down of
but here-
speakers?
I've already said that also. So I don't know which part you weren't
But
listening
it's
to.
all on your
No,
side
hold
of
on.
the
No,
spectrum.
hold on. Hold on.
Should the police
No,
get more involved?
I
That's
have
all I
heard.
wanna ask.
I have heard a complete unwillingness from the right to even consider the seriousness of the issues that underlie
So
them.
it's the victim's fault.
Wait a minute. What
Thank you very
seriousness?
much.
What
It's the
seriousness?
victim's
Well, you
fault.
say it's the victim's
Wait
fault
a
in
minute.
here all the time when
Wait a
one of
minute.
these
Wait a
shootings
minute.
occurs.
No, I don't.
Yes, you
I don't
do.
say it's the victim's fault.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
Can I say
you
something?
actually did say that.
When did I
Repeat
say
it.
that, Franklin?
You said that about Trayvon Martin. You saw it about the
He's
Ferguson.
not the victim. He's the criminal.
Well, that's
you
your
called him a
opinion.
victim. I call him the criminal.
And
He's
I called
the one
him.
who
And I called him a teenage boy
He
walking through a
attacked
neighborhood.
a man and
No, he
got
didn't.
shot.
Yeah, you say he attacked a man.
No,
and
the
the
man
same
said he
guy
attacked the
gets
man.
arrested over and over again for his attacks on other people,
Franklin,
and he's always
the
the
man
victim.
was on the ground with a boy sitting on top of him, slamming his head into the
As
dirt.
I've said, John, before you went
Once
off on your
again,
charge through the
if you
woods
could
here,
tell the
you're
victim from
completely unwilling to even talk about the issue.
He's
All
not
you
a
want to
victim.
do. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about Trayvon Martin in the terms of victimhood because he's not
What
a
about
victim.
the 12-year-old
He's the
kid in the
perpetrator.
park in Cleveland? Was he a victim?
Let me say something.
Doing the thing that you did your entire life when you were a young man?
Franklin,
Was he
I
a
don't even know
victim?
what you're talking about?
A kid playing with a toy gun in
No.
a park? Was he a victim?
I don't know. Did he point it at somebody? Did
Not
he
in the
point it-
video I saw.
Did he point it
Did
at
you
a police
watch the
officer?
video?
Wait a minute.
No, he actually didn't.
Can we talk about actual events that are taking place
It wasn't
today? Today, St. Louis, there was a trial. Okay, they didn't like the outcome of the trial.
Okay. It
That-
wasn't a jury verdict, but okay.
Well, do we have a mob veto rule in America?
No.
Well, I mean, what?
Being
should-
actually honest about what happened.
well, let's walk through this process a little bit. There was a trial.
Uh-huh.
Okay, they didn't like the outcome of the trial, so they started protesting. Okay, protest is fine. Protest broke down, became looting, rioting in the
Okay.
streets. Okay,
All right.
what should the police have done?
Well, arrest people who commit crimes, of course.
How come it's gone on for 4 days, 3 or 4 days?
Where's Jesse Jackson? Where's
Yeah.
Al Sharpton?
I don't know. Where are they,
What-
John?
Well,
Why
they're
did-
not there.
why
They're
don't
not
they-
demanding that the looting and the rioting stop.
Why didn't they shut the city down? I mean, if it was my city and they were looting and burning and
By the way, the
I
shop owner that owns
just shut it down.
the
Was a
merchandise
black
that's
man.
stolen, what did he do? What did he have to do? Why is he being punished?
Nobody's defending that, John.
Franklin,
The
your
person
side
don't know.
defends it all the time. You
No,
just
we're
said
not defending
we
it.
need to be more
We're defending
open.
the
I'm
fact
not
that you-
open to discussion with looters. I'm not.
You're not open
and
to
I won't
discussion,
be.
period. That's the
Not
problem.
to looters. Not to people. Look, I didn't like the O.J. Simpson trial, Franklin. I didn't burn anything down. I didn't break into any stores. I talked about it. I said I don't like it. I said I don't agree with it. I said I don't think it's justice. But I didn't kill anybody, loot anybody, drag them out of their transfer truck, and hit them in the head with bricks.
Nobody's defending those people,
Actually,
so
you
what the
defend
heck
it
are
all
you
the
talking
time,
about?
Franklin, if you don't allow us to deal with it.
You don't want to deal with any issues,
I
John.
wanna
That's
deal
the
with all
problem.
kinds of issues, Franklin. It's called discussion and talk. It's not called looting
Well,
and burning.
here's the thing. They were trying to talk about it for years before then, and your people didn't want to talk about it
No,
at all
Franklin, you're
until
wrong
there's
about
a
that.
riot.
Here's what happened. It's just same thing in a bigger sense that happened in St. Louis. When we talk about it, if they don't get their way, then you weren't nice to them. You didn't do what they wanted because they didn't get their way. I don't get my way lots of times, Franklin. I don't burn anything down over it.
John, I don't want to talk about your marriage. That's a different thing.
And that's very funny, Franklin.
I thought it was funny, but the point is still the same, John. There are significant issues in this country that your side sticks your head in the sand and acts like they never existed until somebody gets really angry and does the wrong thing, and then all you want to talk about is the response
how they did
to
the
it.
wrong thing.
Because you never wanted to talk about the actual problem.
Talk to these
You know,
protesters.
let me give you an example. Let's take it to a different level.
Okay.
Your party is apoplectic over Obamacare. Mm-hmm. You know why we got Obamacare? Because your party stuck your head up your rear end and did nothing about the issue for 50 years.
We got Obamacare because your party wants socialized medicine, and they designed it to fail so that they could usher in single payer.
We're about to get rid of it, though.
Single payer.
Nothing.
Hey, we're about to get rid of it.
Okay. Y'all been telling me that for 8 years.
Let me ask you a question. When you passed Obamacare, how many riots were there from right wings opposed to Obamacare? How much looting was there? How many attacks were there? How many threatened to kill yous were there?
How many Republicans knew what was even going to be in the bill?
Well, we weren't allowed to see it until it was after it was passed.
Well, you got about 100 times more debate than you're going to get on this one. And you already know that's true, don't you?
Here, let me tell you how I would have...
Now listen to this. This segment actually came out this week. Senator McConnell said they had 91 seconds available for debate on this bill. 91 seconds.
Well, let me ask you something. Nancy Pelosi, she got an opportunity to speak.
We got some debate.
We held hearings for a whole year.
Wait a minute. What about Nancy trying to speak to her left-wing crowd this week?
She got a lot of debate there.
Okay.
She got a
That's
taste.
America.
No, she got a taste.
Well, let me ask you a question,
America.
Franklin. So, no, it's not America. Guess what? They're not American citizens. The 40 or so protesters that showed up are illegals who came into this country illegally. Now, are they sympathetic? Sure, they're sympathetic. But you know when the sympathy ends? The sympathy ends when Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, is saying, okay, let's see if we can work something out. And they start going, we demand you do this. We demand you do that. Franklin, if someone walked in and plopped down in your living room and started eating food out of your refrigerator and you asked them to leave and they said, by God, I demand you get nicer food for me, how well would you take that?
I don't know, John, but that's the price of living in a country with free speech.
That's the
Maybe
price
you'd
of living
prefer
in a
one
country
without
with
it.
open borders. And by the way, the protesters, Steve, you asked me how to handle it. You go back to what we did in the 70s. You park a water cannon out there, and the minute they start torching stuff, you roll their butts 100 yards down the road with the water cannon.
Or you just close the city down, tell them to get off the streets. Get out of the streets, and if they still remain there, you arrest them.
Look, here's the problem, Franklin. You all have created an atmosphere. For example, the president of David Lipscomb University has now issued an apology because he had black students in his house, and he dared to have a cotton ball in the arrangement on the tables. He used a bough from a cotton plant, which, by the way, people use all the time. Beautiful plant when you look at it. Native plant to this part of the country. But apparently now it's so horrifying to people that he had to issue an apology for his insensitivity at putting a cotton ball out.
Okay.
That's the ridiculousness that your side has brought us to.
Yes. And the Republicans have nothing to do with the ridiculous.
I'm sorry, Franklin. We didn't invent the cotton plant.
No, you just invented bigotry.
Oh, I see. And a cotton plant's bigotry.
No.
So David Lipscomb's president is a bigot because he put a cotton plant out. And by the way, that is an offensive thing for you to say because the Ku Klux Klan were Democrats. Robert Byrd was a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, guess what? Guess what, John? Our party actually grew up.
No, your party was the Democrats. They were the racists. They were the people who oppressed the blacks.
Our party tried to get better.
Owners.
Your party has given lip service to those people for 50 years.
Black Republican congressman, black congressman Republican. First black senator
Southern
Republican.
Strategy that brought the Republican
Vietnamese
Party
Republican
back.
Congressman Republican.
The Southern Strategy that brought the Republican Party back.
Well, why don't
For the
you
last
talk,
50 years, you have winked at those
President
people
Johnson
and told them,
on tape
we don't
going,
actually
hey,
agree with
we'll
you,
have
but if
them
you'll
vote
vote for us,
Democrat
we'll
for
do
the
what
next
you
50
want.
years. The history of racism
You are
is
lapdogs
Democrat.
for those
The history
people.
of
Calm
racism
down,
is
you two.
Democrat.
Calm down.
Lapdogs
Whoa,
for those
boy. Oh.
people.
Do you disagree that
And
you're
you've
the history
created
of
this
racism?
problem
Do
with
you
your turning your
disagree?
head and sticking it in the sand
No, you know
and
what,
letting them have
Franklin?
their way.
I'll tell you what we did. We opposed the government plantation that you all established.
That's right, John.
I'm glad John
You've
doesn't
had
have
it.
his notes.
You've had it so awful.
You've got them on the government
So
plantation.
awful.
They'll vote
Oh
for
my
you
God,
as
this
long
country
as they
has
need
destroyed
your
your
money.
life, John.
As long as you can
This
hand them some
country has
money, they'll
just
give you your
destroyed
vote.
your quality of life, your standard of living. It's just been horrible for you the last 50 years, John. It's amazing how much suffering you've gone through.
Can I
don't
say
claim
something
it,
now?
Franklin,
Yes,
'cause
you
I don't
do.
believe in victimhood.
You actually
You're
think
the
you are a
one that
victim in
believes
this
in
country.
suffering.
Can I say
That's
something?
the problem. No. John actually thinks he's a victim.
No, I don't,
He
Franklin.
thinks the
That's
entire
opposite of the
right-wing
truth.
establishment
I don't think
is
anybody's
being
a victim.
victimized.
I think you make your own way in the world. And I believe people ought to be allowed to make their own way in the world. You, on the other hand, no, you know what crushes people? Getting them on, dependent on the government dole. That's what crushes people. Crushes people is government programs.
Your poor spirit has been crushed by this
No, Franklin,
behemoth
that's
government.
why I'm still fighting.
Well, can I speak now?
No.
I'm glad you don't have your notes this morning. I don't know what we'd do if you had your notes.
Yeah, we'd be in trouble.
Hey, Franklin, did you have a good week?
Yeah, pretty good.
Let me ask you something. Hillary is going around, promoting her new book and everything. And she keeps talking about how she's a victim of this and a victim of that.
What? Victimization?
Well, how everybody was out to beat her, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to understand where she is, but then she comes out yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, and she talks about President Trump's United Nations speech being dark, drastic. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the speech?
There were parts of it that seemed presidential, and then there were parts of it that seemed juvenile and silly. I don't know how anybody begins to condone using, names like Rocket Man in a serious speech.
You mean like?
you just don't take it
You
seriously.
mean like George H.W. Bush purposely mispronounced Saddam Hussein's name for years? Saddam? That was on purpose, Franklin. That was on purpose because those kind of people have small egos.
Well, I guess
and things like that.
That's exactly what
Where I'm
what
going
we
with
want.
this
We want this man with a small ego.
I don't
to be
care.
feeling
As long as we beat him, I don't care how we do it.
Well, Hillary kind of let this guy get away, North Korean guy. I mean,
if you
she
say-
was the
if you-
Secretary of State,
look,
right?
look,
did she do anything did she try to do anything?
Well, sure she tried.
What'd she do?
Well, they tried to have all kinds of negotiations with other people about that. There's no, hold on.
She taking a piece of pie or cake or something, talk about it?
No, they imposed a bunch of sanctions.
But the
and stuff on
problem,
North Korea.
I will defend
But I
it.
mean, I'm saying, what is it you think that should have been done?
Well, I will defend Hillary a little bit. The problem with her being able to deal with North Korea is there's not a lot of wealthy people to donate to the Clinton Foundation out of North Korea. So she really didn't have a lot of reason to try and
Probably
fix
didn't
it.
spend any time at all there.
This is revisionist history. Nobody I've heard has told me what it is they think these people should have done.
Well, one, we shouldn't have, and this goes back to
Do you
the
think you think Donald Trump's doing what should be done?
Yes, I actually do. But he's in a hell of a position.
I tell you what, I felt pretty proud about.
Here's the
listening to
real
that speech
problem with
yesterday.
this.
Here's the answer. Here's the answer to your question.
Okay.
Right? He's not giving up nuclear weapons. Now you can say, "I'm going to go invade North Korea."
Mm-hmm.
You could take that position.
Okay.
You could. Maybe you'll succeed. Maybe you won't. We've been down that path before.
Well, here's the
But
big.
no,
What are you going to
but
say?
no, but I'm
What are you
my
going to
answer-
say when it happens?
I'm asking you seriously. What is it you really think we ought to do at this
He's a
point?
threat to America.
I got it. I'm not arguing the point. I'm asking you what you think we should do.
Well, one of the things we should have
I'd
done
send a
several
sniper
years
over
ago.
and hit him right between the eyes with a bullet.
Now look, this is a screw up of the Clinton administration, the Bush administration, the Obama administration. This is a long running
You're right.
strip. So there's plenty of blame to go around. The real thing that should have been done is Obama should have been smart enough to look at North Korea and understand the position we were in and not put Iran on the same path, which is what he did with this horrible agreement that he signed with Iran. Because obviously Obama couldn't look at Korea and see, look, Every time we did this, all they did was cheat and work in the back room. And once they get a nuclear bomb, then you're in the position you're in right now that you go, well, what can we do about it?
Go ahead, Franklin.
Well, I have no idea what the president's strategy is right now.
It's
I mean, are you
China.
trying to see? Well, no. Are
It's
you
to force
no?
China to
Are you
cut the
trying?
oil.
Are you trying to send a message to North Korea
No.
that they need to make a deal and get rid of them?
You're trying to send a message to China and get them to cut the oil off. If you cut the oil off, then North Korea might actually have to come make a deal.
I think John's right. I think we're really and truly, we're at a point right now where President Trump
we should not
is
have
letting the rocket man know that we're not playing games.
Well, we should not have withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership then and given up some of our authority in the region. We
We
should
didn't
have
have
been
any
developing
authority in that. It was
What
a bad
authority?
deal for us.
What
The
authority?
lesson to the Chinese in that was that we're dupes and they can get over
The
on
lesson
us.
to that is to everybody else in the region who is working with us, let's turn and work with China now. That's
No.
what's going on now.
Franklin, look, we have been the losers in all of these deals for years. And to be perfectly honest, the speech he made at the very, you talk about juvenile, a group of people that are supposedly progressive, intelligent leaders, if they can't figure out that putting the worst human rights violators in the world in charge of the human rights panel, then they don't deserve any seriousness. They don't deserve any respect.
Then why did he go there then?
Because the public
If
wants,
that's-
the
public wanted him to go to the UN.
public wants us to see if we can turn this ship around. And he made an
I will
effort.
only say, and I don't care what either one of you say, if Obama had gone to the UN and started calling people names like that, y'all would have come out here with the
No,
top of
you're
your head
wrong about
blowing
that.
off.
You're absolutely
Yeah,
wrong
you
about
would
that.
have.
Because I'm not.
And everybody knows
look,
it.
Franklin.
I would have been shocked.
Last week,
I'll be
I
honest
was
with you.
criticizing
Man.
Trump. I'm not motivated by personality. I'm motivated by what you do. If Obama had gone and called them out for their treatment of Israel, had called them out for the ridiculous nature of the Human Rights Committee, I would have applauded him.
That's not what I said, John, and you know it.
If he had called them names,
If you-
I don't care if he calls them names. I could care less what he called them.
You would have come in and said he wasn't a serious man.
Franklin, that's not true.
That's
H.W.
exactly
said
what you
Saddam, and every time he said it, it grated on my nerves, but I knew exactly why he was doing it, and actually thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, that worked out great, didn't it?
Well, I don't know
Good
if it
job.
worked or didn't work, Franklin.
Good job.
You know, if you want to be a backseat driver and look backwards, fine.
You just brought it up.
My point is, Franklin, I don't know what helped or didn't help. You haven't see the problem with that kind of thinking is you don't know how bad it could have been.
The problem with that kind of thinking is we've gotten 10,000 of our people killed, and we spent $2 trillion while you're worrying about
I'm sorry.
getting under somebody's
Let me
skin.
see if I can explain this to you. I said George H.W. Bush. That was 10 years earlier. You're talking about George W.
Oh, no, that set us on the path. Make
You
no
mean we
mistake
should have
about it.
allowed him to go into the Kuwait and
no,
take the
I
oil
didn't say any
fields?
such thing. The obsession
what are
with
you
getting
saying?
rid of him started with that conflict, and you know it.
You mean when he plotted the assassination of a U.S. president?
Okay.
I want to talk about the president's speech yesterday. I thought it was a great speech. I mean, I really do.
Well,
think
has he ever done anything you didn't think was great, Steve?
Not yet.
Oh, say, yeah.
I thought it was an excellent speech.
I do. I really thought it was. I mean, it was really. He got.
Matter
to
of fact,
the
he's
point
getting
on everything.
praise all over the world for the speech, but not from the U.S. media.
Right. I really thought it was a good speech. I mean, he really talked about everybody as a group, as a nation, working together.
Well, he put it in
I mean,
actually a good perspective in that he said, look, I'm here to represent America first. And Americans wanted to hear that. They want a president that has their interest in top of the values set. But then he also said, however, each one of you are elected to represent your people first.
That's right.
And that's just common sense.
I just thought it was a great speech. We haven't heard a speech like that in many, many years.
Well, he actually talked about the evils and the damage that socialism and communism did and got snickers from those people. Now, I would challenge any person in that room that was snickering about that. You show me a socialist government where the life and the lifestyle of the people under that system has improved. Show me one.
Well,
You can't.
Just look at
Venezuela.
Venezuela. I mean, there's a perfect example.
Well, I don't know. Maybe zebra's good. You know, they're having to break into the zoo, kill the zebras, and eat them because they don't have enough food. 5th highest oil reserve country in the world.
John,
Yeah.
nobody wants America to be.
Well, that's not true. Bernie Sanders does, and he's you all's leading. He's probably
No,
the
he
number
wants
one leader of the
health care
Democrat
to be
Party
that
right
way.
now. No,
That's
he's a
not the
socialist.
same thing.
He's a socialist, Franklin. He says it.
So
I'm a
are
socialist.
you,
What about
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
You can go there all you want,
Education.
Franklin.
He
There
wants
is no
education to
pureness
be
to
free.
any of this.
He wants all the education to be free.
Yes, it's free for our elementary school students now. That's socialism. Are you for it or against it?
What about college?
Which is it? Are you for it or against it?
Oh, I'm for a form
Okay,
of
well, that's
I'm
socialism.
for police.
Are you for the social security system? That's socialism. You for that one?
Well, if I have to, I would.
Okay.
There's
Police
other-
and fire.
there's other
That's
services.
socialism. Are you for that?
We have forms of socialism.
That's exactly right.
All
That's
forms
the
of
point.
socialism do not work.
And Franklin,
Agreed.
there's a
We agree
difference-
with each
let me
other.
tell you
We
something,
do.
Franklin.
We do.
There's a difference
care, then.
between being for something and it being the best system. Social Security, for your example that you keep throwing out. Am I for it? Sure, I'm for it because it's established and it would be disruptive to get rid of it. If you ask me, does it work? Not very well. It's returned on average about 2% over the entire life of the Social Security program. The stock market has returned over 9% over that same time period. So is Social Security a good system? No. Doesn't work very well. Not very efficient. Loses money. People put more in than they get out of it. Not a good system. Do I want to disrupt
But
everything?
guaranteed, right?
No, the problem is, Franklin, your side knows that once you get people on the government plantation, it's hard to ever shut it
so
down.
much better
It's
beforehand.
about power
wasn't
and
it?
control,
It was
Franklin.
so much better before.
It was better when people actually took responsibility for their own lives.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
All
It
right.
was so much better before Social Security.
Before we were on the hook for the government.
We have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Brings me round again to find I'm not the man that think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rock man.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Is it time for a new ride? At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, for just $500 today, you can drive it away. Come by any of our 4 locations in Chattanooga, Cleveland, Dayton, and Dalton, Georgia, and find your new ride. For just $500 down, you can drive it away today. Remember, all our vehicles have passed a 200-point inspection and come with a 6-month, 6,000-mile warranty. And you get a free Carfax report and appraisal on your vehicle. Visit us at BuyHerePayHereUSA.com. Offer subject to credit approval. See store for details. We are Buy Here, Pay Here USA.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com, the smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. We'll provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
Oh, uptown hound, I wanna go when you're out of town. I bet you never thought you'd hear me howl.
Listen to your dogs and take them to Uptown Hound when you're headed out of town. Uptown Hound, located at 3506 Old Freewill Road, 478-0555, or find them online at myuptownhound.com.
I know you need a break, but what about me? That's what I need.
Train engineers put our heating and cooling products through almost every test imaginable. So while you're sending your kids to school, they're sending 10,000 volts through a compressor. Testing like this is the reason Train is so reliable, and why our engineers prefer their steaks. Well done.
Ready to indulge in Train comfort? Call a Train comfort specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
After 135 years, Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest since 1880, has delivered on our commitment to produce the finest navy blazer in America. This limited edition blazer was announced as the style winner in Garden and Guns Made in the South Awards. Crafted in Cleveland, Tennessee, we use premium Italian wool from the Tale Barbarus, custom Bimberg lining, and signature gold buttons. It's available through the finest men's stores or at hardwick.com.
I said the Velvetones are rockin', Chattanooga tonight. Oh yeah. Well, Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, bandstand too. All right. Well, everybody's rockin', Chattanooga tonight. Yeah. Well, somebody said the boogie got my joints started doing the bow. Yeah. Somebody said the boogie and the Velvetones are playing the rock. All right, well, everybody's bopping, rocking with the Velvetones. Work it out, rocking on a skyscraper, rocking on a big freeway. Yeah, well, now the Velvetones are rocking in the USA. All right, well, everybody's popping, rocking at the high school hall. Yeah. Well, a house to California, a twist to the coast of Maine. Yeah, well, now no matter where you go, yeah, everybody's rocking the same. All right, well, everybody's rocking with the Velvetones. Yeah, well, I said the Velvetones are rocking Chattanooga tonight. Yeah, with Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, bandstand too. All right, well, everybody's rocking Chattanooga tonight.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
And we're back, and everything's calm and peaceful here in the studio again. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's talk about the Emmy Awards. Did you happen to watch that the other night?
I did not.
I did not either. Did you watch it, John?
Nope, along with millions of other Americans that didn't watch it.
But you know what?
It was record-breaking.
The news clips.
Lowest viewership, I think, since, 10 years or something. Since they hit the low, this was the lowest.
The problem is the news circuit picked up all these criticisms about our president.
Well, I mean, apparently liberals can't figure out that if you call half of your customers deplorables like Hillary couldn't figure out, they don't vote for you. They don't turn your show on. They don't watch you.
Well, anyway, I thought it was a lot of bashing. It's just a lot of bashing. Do they not realize that?
Did you see how uncomfortable Dolly Parton looked when Jane Fonda?
Has anybody asked Dolly?
No, but she looked uncomfortable.
She was very uncomfortable looking. I was just wondering why somebody hasn't asked her.
Well, probably because they don't want to know her answer. There was a young woman.
About what?
You know, was she uncomfortable standing there while
they did
were
a thing on
bashing
9 to 5, and Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda both started bashing
Dolly
Trump.
Parton has largely avoided all political commentary throughout her career,
Which was smart.
You know.
Yeah. By the way, there was a young actress. I can't quote it because I didn't bring it with me, but she wrote an op-ed about being a conservative in Hollywood. And she then wrote a follow-up op-ed about how ugly people were when she came out as a conservative. She said, I was unfriended. One guy said, I hope you die. People called her a racist and a bigot. She just said it's horrible in Hollywood.
Amazon effect. Toys R Us filing bankruptcy. There's going to be more of this.
Certainly it's true that the Amazon effect is important, but that's a complicated bankruptcy. There was a buyout of Toys R Us a couple years ago. They have an enormous amount of debt from the buyout.
Mm-hmm.
And their sales.
They didn't see Amazon coming.
Their sales during the holidays are actually quite high. The problem is people don't take their kids to those toy stores because they're typically buying them surprises now. Birthdays and Christmas, you don't take your kids to see what you're going to buy them. So it's the rest of the year that they're struggling. And that's where the Amazon effect comes in, because people, if you're not going there to try out the toy anyway, you may as well buy it online.
Yeah, but frankly, that misses the point a little bit. I mean, the debt is the point. Amazon doesn't have the debt invested in bricks and mortar.
Sure.
And so that's the whole question for all of these companies. Mm-hmm. And to be perfectly honest, this is probably the same mark in society that you had when the horse and buggy and the automobile were both in the scene. You know, unfortunately, the horse and buggy was going to lose. Now, this will have a little more impact because with the horse and buggy, both cases you as an American citizen were going to get from point A to point B. This will have ramifications people don't understand. Right now, people are taking advantage of these bricks and mortar stores. They're going in, they're holding, touching, looking at an item, then they're going home and ordering it on Amazon. When these bricks and mortar stores are gone, you will not be able to physically look at something, inspect it, touch it, make sure it's what you want. You'll have a lot, I would say you'll see a bump up in the number of returns and things like that, which will increase the cost for some of these mail order people.
It's a serious issue.
Well, you take the Amazon effect, and then you go in and you look at Google, Facebook, some of these type of things where they're kind of taking over from, you know, if they want something, they can just put as much money into it and force it to come their way. You know, where are we going in our society with these type companies? Where's our is our Constitution safe? Let me ask that. Let me put it referred.
I think the Constitution is safe because this is there's always power and influence, and this is shifting, and there'll be a different type of power and influence, and we'll have to confront it.
How do you think we'll confront?
Well, I mean, what are you talking about? The fact that they're more liberal and they put political money?
Yes.
Well, you know.
But we saw that profit motive apparently trumped any ideology with what we've discovered this week about what happened with the Facebook thing. I mean, that ought to scare everybody because it could work in the other direction just as easily. Well, it turns out that these Russian influences, whatever, bought all this
Facebook time
bot experience that does all these posts on Facebook, which generates advertising that, and target it to people who would have been anti-Clinton during it. It could just as easily happen the other way. I'm not really using it to talk about Trump versus Clinton, but it's the same. It's the same way if you Google, you know, Ford automobiles for the next month, you get ads on your internet for Fords. Okay, well, they're doing that with political views, and so you had all these quote fake news stories and stuff like that popping up, potentially affecting how people think. That's pretty scary stuff at that point.
Well,
and it could again. I don't want to get lost in the concept of what happened in this particular time. It could happen to anybody, but Facebook wasn't guarding that. They were making money off of it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the way we could safeguard that, although Franklin has actually inadvertently probably worked against this for years now. You could force people to be more responsible and more self-reliant. Self-reliant, responsible people
Forced them. You mean like an individual mandate?
Well, no. What you do is you quit taking care of them. You quit wiping their butt every day. You make them take care of themselves. That's how you force them, Franklin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Instead of having the government do everything for everybody, you force people to be more self-reliant, more self-respecting. And what happens with that is, if you have a population, a community in this country that understands that their actions mean something, that their word means something, and that they have to make sure they get it right, or they will suffer negative consequences, then they pay more attention. They're not as easily duped. You know, the problem is we have created a culture that, A, believes they're perpetually a victim. They're never responsible for their own lives. It's always someone else's fault. And B, that they get a trophy just for showing up in the morning. And so that is a community, that is a population that is easily led.
Well, I want you to know I did bring a plaque in for you today, John.
Did you?
I had a guy that was the employer the other day. I was talking to him, and he said, you know, it's so hard to find help right now.
Well, sure, there's a labor shortage now.
He said, I can't even.
There's an effort shortage.
Yeah,
They don't want to work.
He said, I can't even find bad help. I mean,
you do understand that we have hit the lowest unemployment rate in 45 years.
Yes, but we also have one of the highest out of the labor force rates in 45 years. More people are just not working.
We just got all the economic news from last time.
Did you see where Haslam's getting ready to sign a deal where food stamp people getting food stamps if there's a certain category of them that are going to have to work if they're going to get their food stamps?
Single people without children.
Okay.
Sure.
You like that?
I think it would be a smarter thing if the government actually came up with some specific public work contributions that you could devote those things to. I think that would make more sense.
Which is socialism.
But
working for the government.
Okay.
Government owns everything.
In other words, we should educate them more?
No, we should give them work. He's talking about the WPA.
No. I don't. I'm not talking about you get paid a wage for doing. I'm just saying if you're saying they've got to work, why not do something that gives back to the community at that point?
Okay. In other words, pick up paper on the streets.
The WPA.
That might be something, but I think we can probably find, some work that needs to be done in our schools. Or
you know what my dad said, that when in the Depression, when they would go by and all the people would be working on the WPA projects, you know what the WPA stood for?
What?
We piddle along.
Well, there was a lot of
Well,
things.
when my father was helping to construct the dam up on the
I was fixing
Ocoee
to say,
River,
the Ocoee
I don't
River
know.
there.
I don't know if that was piddling or not.
Well, some of it was, some of it wasn't, Franklin. The problem is, if you're going to get paid whether you work or not, you have no real reason to work. And that's the problem with all of these projects. I don't disagree in some way that if we're going to be paying this money out, then I personally think we ought to get something out of them. If you break the law and you're going to be over here in jail and I'm going to be paying to put a roof over your head and a meal in front of you, by God, you ought to be out working on the side of the road. Now, for a long time, Franklin's side got us off of that. That was cruel and unusual punishment. It was too mean to expect them to work. Now, I've got to work to pay the taxes to feed and house them, but somehow asking them to work while they're being housed and fed was cruel and unusual. So I'm for any of that. The problem is when you institute that across the board, it is socialism and it becomes self-fulfilling. People go, well, why would I go out and get a job in the private sector when I can just get a government job?
Well, there is a difference between doing work and becoming an abusive labor force, which is what we were seeing in a lot of those things, and John sees no difference between
What was
the
an
two.
abusive labor force about it?
Oh, if you don't think that some of what happened with some of the chain gangs and stuff over the years that they were doing
Look, Franklin,
wasn't wrong.
there's things
Hello?
that happen that are wrong all the time. It doesn't mean you destroy the entire system over
Yeah,
it.
but you have to. If people
You
on
fix
both
that
sides
incident.
will try to fix it.
You fix that incident that was wrong.
Yeah, well, the problem is most people didn't want to fix that when it came time to talk about it.
Well, they probably wanted prison to be uncomfortable, so people didn't want to be in prison.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said
now we're arguing over soft serve ice cream machines in the prison.
I've always thought prisons ought to be
built. It does. It happened at Brushy Mountain. They had a riot because the soft serve ice cream machine broke, and they didn't fix it early
that's
enough.
the reason they had a riot.
Franklin, they did. They rioted over HBO. They weren't getting their cable TV. That was at Brushy Mountain right up here in East Tennessee.
I've always thought prisons ought to be built underground.
I always thought a prison ought to be relatively uncomfortable.
Underground. Yeah. Oregon celebrating right now. They just passed a law for free abortions.
Yay. Did you see?
They probably don't need many.
Angela Merkel in Germany's running for re-election, and she was holding a town hall, and a 23, 24-year-old young woman with Down syndrome asked her why she supported abortions for Down syndrome children. It was an interesting moment for Miss Merkel.
What'd she say?
What do you say? What do you say to that? You know, this was a functioning, beautiful young woman. You know, she had Down syndrome, but she was a functioning citizen of the country, and she wanted to know why they paid for abortions. You know, we talked about it. I brought it in a month or so ago. Iceland is bragging that they have eradicated Down syndrome. You haven't eradicated Down syndrome. You murdered everybody with Down syndrome.
Yeah. All right. Paul Manafort, wiretapped by the Obama.
Yep. CNN has had to basically, after they put a tweet out last spring saying that Trump's claim that Trump Tower was wiretapped is an absolute lie. Yesterday, they put a tweet out and said Trump Tower was wiretapped. And James Clapper is in real trouble because James Clapper, on the record, under oath, said unequivocally, he said not only was Trump Tower not wiretapped or surveilled, he said no one in Trump's organization was at all, that he would have known about it and that it did not happen. He said that under oath. So did Susan Rice, who now has had to go, well, yeah, a little bit. Of course, Susan Rice also said she didn't unmask anybody, and then under sworn testimony said, well, yeah, I did unmask people.
John, I hate to say this, but every time these Democrats get caught, nothing happens.
Well, it's because the media gives it 5 seconds, and yet they'll give...
I'm talking about from a legal perspective.
Well, because there's no outcry, because it's not covered. They don't generate any outcry among the people.
Can we start right now?
You can try.
Franklin, would you
Franklin,
join us?
Have you seen James Clapper's sworn testimony that he gave on this?
I believe so.
Do you not feel like there's some real problems with a sworn testimony that none of this happened at all to anyone? Because he didn't say Trump Tower. He said no one in Trump's campaign was wiretapped.
I don't recall that. I'll have to look it up.
Look
I
it
don't
up,
remember.
because he specifically said no one was wiretapped. All right, let's just say if he said that. Does he have a problem?
I don't know. It depends on whether he knew about it or not. That would be the first question.
So they go to a FISA court. Actually, he was asked.
He's not involved in the FISA.
He was asked, Franklin. He was the director of national security. How would he not know about that? Matter of fact, the FBI.
Didn't say he didn't, John.
By the way, the FBI.
I don't recall this.
The FBI is who went to the FISA court. James Comey testified under oath that no one in Trump's campaign was surveilled. Does he have a problem?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, obviously, folks, I'm just this ignorant layman that says, if you say it never happened and it turns out it happened and you said it never happened under oath, you got a problem. But I'm just an, illiterate citizen.
That's what gets me is, we keep finding these little things and nothing happens. It's just like, what happened to,
First of all, the president claimed that he had been wiretapped. He didn't just say Trump Tower, number one. That's not what the president said. So there is a huge difference there between one person being wiretapped.
You're right. And
that required somebody to present evidence to a judge.
All right, let me explain this to you, though, Franklin.
Probable cause.
The president is not a lawyer, And you're right. He didn't speak in proper legalese. What he said and what he meant, we all know. Normal citizens understand what he meant. When he said Obama had me wiretapped, he didn't mean Obama personally went out and hooked the wires up, or even personally called and said, go wiretap him. He didn't actually mean wiretap.
Even involved in it.
He didn't actually mean wiretap, because that's another legalese you all latched onto. Oh, well, they don't wiretap anymore. Yeah, I know. That's his point. He just meant that they were listening in. He meant it as a much broader general comment. And from that standpoint, he is completely vindicated. But if you want to play the legalese statement, James Clapper and Jim Comey were both asked pointed legalese questions. Did X, Y, and Z happen? And they both under oath said X, Y, and Z did not happen. And it now turns out that it did. Both of them lied under oath. It's relatively clear.
What's going on with Comey right now?
He's a liar, and he's being proven a liar over and over and over again.
I mean, I just read the National Review's take on this, John, and which is a conservative publication.
That's anti-Trump, but go ahead.
Okay, well, they don't take quite the harsh position that you take, and they say it's impossible to know at this point whether or not there's something inappropriate there or not. Time will tell, and it will all determine on whether or not whether Paul Manafort actually did anything wrong or not.
No, actually it won't. It won't have anything to do with whether James Manafort did anything wrong.
That's what they say.
Not Clapper and Comey's testimony.
Okay.
And here's the reason that they say we don't know. We don't know because the FBI won't answer any questions about it. That's why we don't know.
Isn't that how law enforcement investigations typically go?
I don't know, Franklin. You've got the FBI investigating the FBI. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
They say they're
Mueller is in the FBI?
He's a former director of the FBI, Franklin.
Okay.
They keep talking about Manafort.
I don't know why we just don't. Why don't we just let Trump pardon himself?
By the way,
else?
let me explain this to you.
Because it doesn't matter to you.
All of these Democrats that Mueller brought into the investigation, one of the chief ones, by the way, Manafort's house. Mm-hmm. Normally you knock on the door, and you say, we're here with a warrant. We want to come in. Did you know they picked the lock on his front door? Did you know they picked the lock on his front door?
Yeah, I heard that.
All right. One of his underlings, the main guy that was running that, was the guy that ran the Enron investigation for the Justice Department.
Okay.
And he was accused at that same time of doing a lot of the same heavy-handed tactics that we saw with picking the lock of Manafort's door. Guess what happened to the Enron prosecutions that this guy handled? Almost all of them were overturned because of his tactics. That's what we've got going on in this investigation.
They're trying to get Manafort to whip.
They are.
Somebody, right?
And that's okay. I'm all right with that. But they're using some pretty ugly, heavy-handed tactics to do it.
Okay. Agreed.
What's going on with Debbie Wasserman Schultz right now?
Well, right now she's getting a pass from the national media, so there's not a national outcry over the fact that she jeopardized national security. She screwed Bernie Sanders over on purpose. She probably opened up the House congressional office files along with 25 of her fellow Democrat House members to the Russian intelligence. And nothing is being talked about on the national news about it.
Well, I don't care about the national news. Why aren't we doing something legally
Because
about
nothing's been talked about on the national news. If there's no outcry, then there's cover to not do anything about it.
Wait a minute, John.
Now, I don't disagree. I know where you're going.
You mean
Jeff Sessions ought to be doing more.
Where is Sessions?
I don't know. Maybe we are. There is an ongoing investigation, and they may be doing the same thing to him that we just talked about with Manafort. They may be trying to get enough stuff on Inwan, however you say his name, to get him to roll. But whether he will or not, I don't know. The point here is Debbie Wasserman Schultz is different from the other 25. The 25 Democrats are fully complicit in allowing these people to be overpaid to the tune of $4 million, to have access they shouldn't have had access. But when it first blew up, almost all of them dropped his employment. Debbie Wasserman Schultz continued to employ him right up to the moment that he was caught trying to flee the country.
See, I think if we came down on her, then she would flip.
You do understand they're investigating her, right?
I think we're past
She says they're
investigation.
not
John.
investigating her and is demanding that she get her laptop back. Oh, wait a minute. Is it her laptop? First it was, then it wasn't, now it is again.
Okay.
Is Bob Corker going to run again, John?
I don't know.
When's he going to announce?
He said in October. Well, he said this fall.
What is Haslam going to do after his term, you think, as governor?
I guess he's got plenty of options.
I suspect he's considering running for Lamar Alexander's position.
Probably.
That'd be my guess.
There was always a story about flipping around and governors swapping out for senator.
Is Lamar ready to retire?
I talked to his chief of staff. He said they don't think he is.
How long has he been there?
A long.
Well, he hadn't
long
actually
time.
been. No, he hadn't actually been there a long time. He's been there since 2002.
Well, okay.
Now, he's been on the political scene. for
He's
a
been
long
in
time.
government for a long, long time.
What did he do before?
In 1976, he ran for governor, did not make it. Ray Blanton was elected Democrat, and as we expect, that led to one of the worst scandals in Tennessee party history, Democrat Party history, the selling of pardons to rapists and murderers. The Supreme Court justice got out of bed 3 days early and swore Lamar Alexander in to succeed Ray Blanton at midnight to stop the pardons and paroles from being sold. He was a pretty good governor. People tended to do well. Tennessee tended to do well under him. He served for 8 years. Then he was out, and he went in as president of the UT system. He was in that for several years, and then he ran for president in 92, I believe. He was touted. He served under H.W. Bush as the education secretary. And then in 2002, he ran against Ed Bryant in the Republican primary and replaced Fred Thompson in the Senate. So he's been there since 02.
Haslam is, he's
probably more than y'all
he's
wanted.
He's going out of office. I know that, but he's starting to do some things right now. I think that are really important before he leaves office. And these EBT cards, he's having investigations into those, and where they have dual cards. I was behind a girl the other day. I stopped at a dollar store, and she was in there, and it's just buying cookies and buying all this other stuff, and then handing them the EBT card, I guess, food stamps. I just can't imagine the junk food that they're buying, letting them buy them on food stamps.
Well, it's not just that, but you'll see them. They'll have cash to buy beer and cigarettes.
Yeah.
But then they'll use the EBT card to buy
Well, that's
food.
what was
And look,
happening
I don't
here.
know how you fix that, and that's again back to what I was talking about earlier of personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, someone who's a serious person and really concerned for their family and their kids would say, if I have limited amount of money, I'm going to make sure that my kids have proper food before I buy beer and cigarettes.
Yes, I understand.
Well, that's undoubtedly true, what he just said. It's also true that let's not let myth get ahead of us here. Those benefits, adjusted for inflation, are a lot lower now than they were 20 years ago. They haven't really raised them in all that period of time.
You think we could do?
So we're spending less, actually.
You think we could do a better job limiting what could be bought on them? You think cookies and cakes and some of this stuff?
I'd rather see it, to be honest, the WIC program, which, by the way, was Dan Quayle's program, the guy they said was an idiot, is considered it's considered one of the best run programs in the federal government. And it does just that. It has WIC-approved items that you can buy. I would much rather see food stamps set up like the WIC program, where they can only buy meat of a certain cut price per pound, bread, potatoes, nutritious food.
Right.
I think we should. Well,
fruit and vegetables.
We should be talking next week about the tax cut plan that Senator Corker's one of the authors of.
That's true.
That we got some details of this week.
And we should talk about the fact that we kicked over $20 trillion in debt.
Where we go? Will Obamacare be changed?
McCain is on board. They're waiting on Susan
Is
Collins.
McCain on board?
Yes.
I haven't seen him commit to that.
McCain said that he would support it if his governor supported it. Later that day, the governor came out and said, I support it. So I don't know how he gets out of that. He said he was on board. I also think he took a lot of heat. I think Susan Collins and Murkowski are the two that they're looking at, because
And
Rand Paul
has
kicked
said
out.
no already.
So you've got to pick up one of them.
All right, till next week. We'll see you.
By the way, call Murkowski and Collins in May. You can call them in Washington. Look up the number. It's 202 area code. Call them and tell them, make sure you say, I'm not a constituent. However, please vote for this bill.
Let's get something done. We'll see you, Rocket Man.
Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell.